So now let's understand about SQL. That's the reason why we wanted this part of the content talks about SQL. Before we go and understand why we need SQL, let's understand what is SQL, right? So SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Structured Query Language, right? So SQL has its beginnings from 1970s, and it was created at IBM by a bunch of researchers who were earliest researchers on relational databases. So the whole area of relational databases took off. There were a bunch of phenomenal mathematicians and researchers called Boy and Card who came up with some of these core ideas of relational databases. And all this great research was being done at IBM Research in the 1970s. So SQL came from that research as a standard way. And today SQL is super powerful, right? But when it started as a research project, right? And SQL in a nutshell, if you want to think of SQL in a nutshell, right? SQL is basically a standard way. It's basically an industry standard way. It's a standard way to query the data or to obtain the data, right? Or to add to the data or delete or modify the data. So any of these operations, imagine you have a database. Imagine you have a database in which you have lots of tables. Let's say T1, T2, T3, T4 tables. Any data that you have in each of these tables, anything that you have in each of these tables, any data that you have in these tables, right? If you want to query this data, right? We saw this query, right? Suppose in the movies data set that we saw, if I want a list of all the movies, if I want a list of all the movies which were released after 2000, okay, this is a very, very sensible thing. I'm only concerned about movies post 2000 because those are the movies that I really like, right? Makes a lot of sense. Or if I want movies by a specific director, let's say Steven Spielberg, right? Or by a specific actor, where a specific actor acted in. All of this is about querying the data that you have in your tables or obtaining the data, right? You might want to add more data. If a new movie is released, you want to add that information to the database. Or you might want to delete some misinformation or incorrect information. Or you might want to modify some information, right? Suppose, for example, you missed out adding an actor in a movie earlier. You want to modify and add that information or modify that information, right? So SQL is a standard way. It's an industry-wide standard way to query, obtain, add, delete, and modify data, right? And remember, SQL is so popular today. I have seen SQL being used by a wide spectrum of people, by data scientists, obviously, because data scientists have to obtain data, right? Data scientists have to obtain data on a day-to-day basis to perform machine learning or data science operations on top of it. Data scientists, machine learning engineers, software engineers. Imagine if I'm building a movie app, right? Where I'll recommend you some movies that you might like. Obviously, I have to know SQL because all this data is stored in a database and I can obtain this data only using a database. Or if I want to build a ticketing system, if I want to build a ticketing system, be it train tickets, flight tickets, movie tickets, whatever, databases are so core to it. This very website that you are watching this, or watching this content on, has an SQL database at the backend to store which video should come after which video. What are the comments for each of the videos? Who is the creator of each of the videos? Where is this video hosted? Who are all the registered customers who should have access to these videos? all this information all this information is stored in a database, which requires, and most databases today, be it be relational or non-relational, typically have an SQL interface to query, obtain, add, delete data, right? So I have also seen, very interestingly, I have seen people in my own work experience at Amazon, I've seen people from the marketing department, from the sales teams, okay, and these are non engineers, trust me, right, from business development teams. I've seen a lot of these people also learn SQL, because at the end of the day, if they don't have data, they can't perform their duties. And all of the data is stored in a database. When the data is stored in a database, their only way to obtain the data and make data driven decisions is by learning SQL. I have seen non engineers at Amazon from all these walks of life using SQL extensively. That's how powerful and easy SQL is. SQL is so easy that a non engineer can easily learn if he or she spends a weekend on it. That's how simple SQL is. And SQL is so powerful that some of the best software engineers, some of the best data scientists use SQL on a day to day basis to get their work done. Extremely complex work can be done using SQL, and it is so widespread, trust me. I've seen like, if you don't know SQL, you can't survive at many companies, trust me. Because especially if your company is a data driven company where all decisions will be made using past data, then you better know SQL. That's how simple things boil down to, right? Okay. So at the same time, SQL is also, this is an important thing. SQL is not a general purpose programming language. It is not a general purpose. It is not a general purpose programming language. General purpose programming language. You take your C, C++, Java, Python, all these programming languages are general purpose. You can do lots of things with C. You can design an operating system with C. You can build a database in C. The very early databases were actually built in C, right? You can build a web server in C or Java or Python. You can do their general purpose. You can do lots of things with them. But SQL is called a domain specific. SQL is called a domain specific language because SQL is only used in the domain of databases. Okay, SQL is not used to build an operating system. SQL cannot be used to build a web server. SQL cannot be used to build a game. While all these programming languages can be used to build all of them. SQL is a domain specific language whose primary and only task is to efficiently add, modify, delete, and query data in a database. That's what its task is, right? And there is also a very important property of SQL. Most of the programming languages that we learn are called procedural programming languages, right? Procedural programming languages. What it means is, suppose you have, let's assume you have a text file, right? Let's assume you have a text file. Let's assume the movie data, movie ID, movie name, movie year, okay, and some movie genre, let's say. Suppose you want to obtain, in a standard procedural language like C or C++ or Python or Java, right? What do you do? If you want to answer this question that I want the list of movies, suppose I want the list of movies which were released where the year is greater than 2000. Suppose this is what you want to obtain. This is your task. What do? You load all of this and in a step by step. So you explain step by step. You explain step by step using control flow statements like if else or for loops or while loop. You use all of these tools in every language, in C, C++, Python, Java. You have if else conditions, for loops, while loops, all of them exist. You explain step by step. You give step by step instructions. So you give step by step instructions on how to solve this problem. Those languages are called procedural programming languages, where you give step by step instructions on how to solve a task. SQL, on the other hand, is called a declarative programming language. It's called a declarative programming language, wherein you do not wherein you do not specify step by step what to do. You do not say what the step by step process. The step by step process in C, C++, Java is, okay, load this file, go row after row, which you can write using a for loop or a while loop. And for every row, check if the year is greater than equal to 2000. If so, print it. That's the step by step process that you would do in C, C++, Python or Java. In SQL, which is a declarative programming language, you don't say step by step. I'll write a simple SQL query here. You can say select movie name. I'll explain you what this means later. From movies where year is greater than 2000. This is how an SQL statement looks like. Here you are saying that I want the movie names from the movies table where the year is greater than 2000. You are declaring, it's called declarative because you're declaring what you want. You're declaring what you want, not how to get it. You're not telling how to get it. That's what a procedural programming language does. It gives you step-by-step instructions on how to solve your task or how to get this information. In a declarative programming language, you say what you want. How to get it is someone else's problem. Okay, we'll see whose problem it is in a while. But in a procedural programming language like C, C++, etc., you also explain how to get this information. In a declarative, in an SQL-like language, you say what you want. Again, I'll explain this syntax later. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to give you an example. There are no for loops here. There are no if-else conditions here. You just say, I want all the movie names from the movies table where the year is greater than 2000. You just said what you want, not how to get it. That's the difference between a procedural programming language and a declarative programming language. So SQL is a declarative programming language where we do not give step-by-step instructions, where we say what we want and we expect SQL to give us. Because SQL is declarative, that's why it has become extremely easy and popular. Because non-programmers from marketing, sales, business development need not know about for loops or if-else conditions or any programming or file handling. They can just say, this is what I want, get it for me. And SQL does that for you, right? So the core properties of SQL is, it is super simple. It is super simple and easy to use. That's why it's it's super powerful. This is also important. Just because it is declarative and it is easy doesn't mean it's not powerful. It is so powerful that it is one of the most used tools by software engineers, machine learning engineers, data scientists, while it is also a very popular and most used tools by marketing, sales, and business development. That's the power of SQL. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. It is one of the most important toolkits for the 21st century in terms of, because as data increases, right, every company will eventually become a data-driven company. So whatever role you do, you need to have some knowledge of SQL. Whether you're a marketing guy, sales guy, business development guy, manager, everybody. Because your data is at the end of the day stored in an SQL database, knowledge of SQL will help you achieve things that you cannot do without the knowledge of it. And you can do it very easily. And it's super powerful. That's very, very important. So SQL is a declarative programming language where we don't have to define step by step what we want or how to get it. We just have to say what we want. And it's a domain specific programming language.